Have you ever felt like you're balancing on a wire so thin it might snap with the next breath you take? Like every smile, every nod, every swallowed word is just another desperate step forward, not because you want to, but because you're afraid that if you don't, everything around you might come crashing down. Maybe you don't even remember when it started. Maybe it was a quiet lesson, learned not through lectures, but through glances, punishments, cold shoulders. Somehow, somewhere, you began to believe that goodness was about shrinking, about being soft enough not to offend, about bending until you almost disappeared. I know that feeling. I lived it longer than I'd like to admit. I thought I was being noble. I thought that if I could just be kind enough, agreeable enough, invisible enough, I'd earn peace, I'd earn love, I'd earn belonging. But here's the truth that hit me like a lightning bolt the day I could no longer bend without breaking. The price of that false goodness was my soul. And the Stoics, they saw this trap centuries before we named it. They warned us. Virtue is not about vanishing. Virtue is strength, not submission. It is the courageous art of standing whole in a world that profits from your division. Being good does not mean abandoning yourself. It means living with integrity even when the world misunderstands you. Especially when the world misunderstands you. If you've ever found yourself giving more and more, only to be seen less and less, if you've ever whispered your needs into a void, hoping someone might listen, then stay with me, because this isn't just your story. It's a silent epidemic, passed from generation to generation under the guise of virtue, and it's time we called it what it is, not goodness, but conditioning. It's time we unlearn it. You are not here to be a hollow echo of what others want you to be. You are not here to earn your worth through silence and sacrifice. You are here to be whole, to speak when your soul stirs, to hold your ground when the winds of expectation try to blow you over, to remember that kindness without boundaries is not kindness at all, it's self-erasure. So today, we walk a different path. We step off the tightrope. We build something sturdier beneath our feet, something real, something unshakable, not the approval of others, but the approval of the only person who must live with your choices every single day, you. If you've ever been told that to be loved, you must first be small, silent, pleasing, hear me now. That was never the truth, and you were never meant to walk that tightrope forever. Goodness alone does not guarantee anything. The world does not pause to honor those who give themselves away freely. It rewards those who know when to say no, those who guard their time, their energy, their very being like sacred ground. Look around and you'll see it. The ones who speak clearly, who stand tall even when standing alone, are the ones others instinctively respect, not because they shout the loudest, but because they radiate a presence that says, I know who I am. I will not be moved just because you want me to. This is the brutal but liberating truth. Blind kindness is often a slow death by 1,000 cuts. It is the smile that hides the wound. It is the yes that should have been a no. It is the silence that rots into resentment deep in the soul. The Stoics knew Marcus Aurelius wrote not about pleasing everyone, but about ruling himself. Seneca warned that if you do not choose your path, you will be dragged by another's. Epictetus reminded us that our will is the only thing truly ours, and to surrender it for approval is to lose everything. Virtue without discernment is a currency spent by others. Goodness without strength is an open invitation to be overlooked, used, forgotten. I know this because I lived it. I mistook being easy to love with being easy to forget. I thought that if I could just be agreeable enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, I would be cherished. But what I learned, painfully, slowly, was that without firm boundaries, even love turns thin and brittle. It becomes something you chase instead of something you inspire. Every time you agree when your heart is screaming otherwise, you betray yourself. Every time you tolerate what bruises your spirit, you send a silent message. I do not matter. My needs are secondary. My soul is negotiable. And the world, busy and indifferent, takes you at your word. The Stoic path does not teach us to roar in anger or retreat into bitterness. It teaches us to anchor ourselves so deeply in our truth that no tide of expectation can drag us away. True respect is not begged for. It is not bought through sacrifice. It is earned in the quiet dignity of being unshakably yourself. I believe this is where real freedom begins, not in the applause of others, not in their approval, but in the simple, powerful act of standing your ground, saying yes only when it is true, saying no without apology, believing that you are enough without needing to be everything to everyone. That is the cost of true goodness, the courage to remain whole. Not everyone will understand, some may even resent it, but the ones who matter, the ones who see you, really see you, will find their way. Because strength, like virtue, is unmistakable. It is felt even in silence. No one enters this world begging to be liked. You arrived whole, fearless, full of raw, unapologetic need and wonder. But little by little, you were shaped, taught that your worth was something delicate, something dependent on smiles you could earn, anger you could suppress, tears you could hide. It didn't happen in a single moment. It was 1,000 small corrections, 1,000 small punishments, a frown when you spoke too loudly, a cold shoulder when you said something inconvenient, a withdrawal of affection when you dared to be difficult. Somewhere along the way, you absorbed a poison dressed up as wisdom. That approval is survival. That to be accepted, you must first disappear, and so you learned to smile through discomfort, to nod when you wanted to scream, to soften every sharp edge of your soul just to fit into spaces that were never built for your full weight. The Stoics called this not virtue, but a kind of betrayal, a betrayal of the only thing that truly belongs to you. Your mind, your will, your truth. They saw clearly what many of us only realize after years of exhaustion. To please others at the cost of your own soul is not kindness. It is a form of self-destruction. It is not humility to make yourself small. It is not goodness to sacrifice your needs at the altar of politeness. It is weakness to abandon yourself for a peace that never truly comes. I know this road well. I walked it until my feet bled. I thought if I could just be easier to love, easier to handle, I could finally rest. But all it gave me was a life that felt like a tight smile stretched too thin across an aching heart. And when I finally broke, it wasn't from one great betrayal. It was from 1,000 tiny silences I had forced upon myself. This is why the Stoics matter, because they dared to say what many are too afraid to admit. That real virtue does not ask for your disappearance. It demands your presence. It demands that you stand, even when standing is uncomfortable, even when your voice shakes, even when love is withdrawn because you refuse to abandon yourself again. You are not made to be a mirror for other people's expectations. You are not born to be a shapeshifter, bending endlessly just to make others comfortable. You are meant to be a force, a presence, a soul lit from within, not dimmed by the endless winds of approval seeking. Every time you choose to suppress your truth, you practice your own disappearance. Every time you choose to honor it, even quietly, even trembling, you practice your return. And let me tell you something I wish someone had told me much earlier. The world does not need another agreeable shadow. It needs your full, burning light, unsoftened, undiminished, unapologetically whole. The world watches for strength, not for quiet sacrifices tucked away where no one sees. It measures you not by how much you give away silently, but by how fiercely you guard what is sacred inside you. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than most. He didn't spend his life debating the technicalities of goodness or seeking approval from those around him. He lived through action, through a will so immovable that even in the chaos of empire, he remained steady. He didn't beg the world to notice his virtue. He allowed it to burn steadily within him, like a flame that neither storm nor betrayal could snuff out. The Stoics warned us with brutal clarity. Fairness without a backbone invites exploitation. Honesty without firmness invites distortion. If you are easily ignored, the world will gladly ignore you. If you offer kindness without discernment, it will not be celebrated, it will be consumed. I learned this not from books but from the slow heartbreak of watching pieces of myself slip away in the name of being good. I thought being endlessly available, endlessly understanding, endlessly forgiving would make me indispensable. Instead, it made me invisible. The real strength Stoicism teaches is not about flexing power over others. It's about flexing mastery over yourself. It's about living in such a way that your presence demands acknowledgement. Not because you shout or demand, but because your inner clarity makes you undeniable. This strength is not loud. It is not brash. It is quiet, like a blade sharpened under years of steady hands, kept ready not for vanity but for necessity. A Stoic does not abandon kindness, they temper it. They do not abandon compassion, they fortify it with discernment. They do not abandon virtue, they sharpen it until it gleams with unmistakable authenticity. I believe we are not asked to become harder to be cruel, but to become stronger to be truly kind, to set boundaries that say, I will help, but not at the cost of my soul. I will give, but not bleed myself dry for those who only know how to take. I will listen, but not silence my truth just to avoid discomfort. And if respect does not follow, so be it. Respect earned through erasure is not respect worth having. The world needs fewer people who disappear in the name of goodness and more who embody it with fierce, radiant clarity. True virtue does not demand you empty yourself for applause. It demands you fill yourself first, so that when you do give, it is from a place of abundance, not depletion. So sharpen yourself, not into a weapon of anger, but into a force of unmistakable presence. Quiet, sharp, ready, not reckless. You were never meant to be a martyr for expectations that drain you. You were meant to be a light that stands even when no one else remembers how to shine. There is a lie so deeply stitched into our upbringing that many never think to question it. That goodness is measured by how much you can endure without protest. That to be virtuous is to bend, to absorb, to accept every slight, every injustice, every unreasonable demand with a smile. But that is not virtue. That is the slow death of the soul. That is the transformation of a living, breathing human being into a vessel for other people's comfort. And the Stoics, the ones who actually lived the truths we try to quote, knew this well. They did not preach endless surrender. They preached rightful action, rightful boundaries, rightful standing. You are not born to be an endless yes. You are not crafted to be a tool for someone else's convenience. Somewhere along the way, the world tried to convince you otherwise. It rewarded your compliance. It smiled at your sacrifices. It praised your self-erasure until you were so thin, so brittle, you forgot what it was like to move under your own power. I know that hollowing out from the inside. I know what it feels like to be everyone's favorite and no one's priority. I know what it costs to mistake being good for being available to everyone but yourself. Stoic kindness is not blind obedience. It is the sharpened discernment to know when your action serves the greater good, and when your inaction only feeds exploitation. It is understanding that walking away from what corrupts you is not selfishness, but wisdom. True kindness is never at odds with self-respect. True virtue never demands that you become a doormat for other people's endless needs. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, political scheming, personal grief, and still, he remained firm. He did not cave to the pressures of public opinion. He did not dilute his principles just to keep the peace. Neither should you. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you teach the world to expect your compliance. Every time you swallow your rightful anger for the sake of harmony, you bury another piece of yourself deeper underground. It is not noble, it is tragic, and there comes a point, if you are honest enough, when you realize that peace bought through your silence is not peace at all. It is a slow, silent war against yourself. You must reclaim your center. You must stand in it fiercely, without apology, even when it shakes, even when it costs you the approval you once thought you needed to survive. Because if you don't, you will live a life where you are always useful, always agreeable, always available, and quietly disposable. The Stoic path demands more from you. It demands the courage to say, I am not here to be consumed. I am here to live fully, upright and undiminished. That, and nothing less, is what real virtue demands. When people finally wake up to how long they've been living for others, there's often an instinct to swing hard in the opposite direction. They barricade themselves behind walls, wear bitterness like armor, and call it strength. They go from bleeding themselves dry to refusing any act of generosity, mistaking isolation for power. But that is not the Stoic way. True Stoicism does not ask you to become hardened, impenetrable, or cruel. It asks you to become balanced, to stand firmly, but without venom, to speak clearly, but without contempt, to live fully, but without dependence on anyone else's applause. There is a rare kind of power in knowing you can set a boundary without raising your voice, that you can say no without a theatrical performance, that you can disappoint someone and still be kind. This is what Stoic strength looks like, not the brittle, angry strength that lashes out, but the quiet, grounded strength that does not tremble when misunderstood. I know what it feels like to want to slam every door you once left open too wide. I know the temptation to harden, to cut off, to retreat into a fortress of cold self-protection. But that isn't healing. That's another kind of prison, just colder and lonelier than the last. The Stoic path is different. It teaches you to reclaim your voice without cruelty, to set your limits without shame, to speak your truth without waiting for permission. It shows you that you don't have to choose between being a doormat and being a fortress. You can be a river, strong enough to carve through stone, but still flowing, still alive. True inner strength doesn't shut you off from the world. It roots you so deeply in yourself that the world can no longer uproot you. Clarity, not coldness. That is the heart of Stoic power. The ability to say, "This is who I am. This is what I will accept. This is where I stand. And I stand not in anger, not in fear, but in truth. Even if others are unsettled, even if they withdraw, their discomfort is not your mistake. Their disappointment is not your failure. You were not born to live as a chameleon, endlessly shifting colors to blend into every environment. You were born to live anchored, to let your inner compass, not the fleeting weather of others' opinions, chart your course. I believe this is what real freedom feels like. The moment you realize you do not need to be hardened to be strong. You do not need to be cruel to be clear. You do not need to scream to be heard. Your truth, lived honestly and without apology, is enough. It was always enough. And when you walk that path, steady, rooted, luminous, you will find that the approval you once chased so desperately falls away like a forgotten dream. Because you have finally found something greater, yourself, whole and unshakable. How many more days will you wear the mask so tightly it leaves bruises underneath? How many more times will you bite back your truth just to keep the peace in rooms that do not deserve your silence? It's a bitter truth to swallow, but it must be said. The world does not mourn your disappearance. It rewards the loud, the clear, the anchored, not the endlessly agreeable. No one will hand you back the pieces of yourself you gave away. No one will stop the performance for you. If you want freedom, real, fierce, unshakable Stoic freedom. You must claim it without waiting for applause, without waiting for permission. You can spend your life playing the role they assigned you. The good one, the agreeable one, the one who says yes with a hollow heart and smiles through the slow erosion of spirit. Or you can step off that stage. You can choose, finally, to be generous because you decide to be, not because you're scared of losing favor. You can choose to extend kindness not as a shield against conflict, but as a true expression of your strength. Kindness without fear, without agenda, without chains, and you can live with dignity, not with a desperate hunger for someone else to hand it to you, but because you know, deep in your bones, that your worth was never meant to be negotiable. This is the line in the sand that Stoicism dares us to draw. Not between us and the world, but between who we were taught to be and who we actually are. The decision to reclaim yourself is not an easy one. It will cost you the comfort of being liked by everyone. It will cost you the false peace of approval bought through self-erasure. It will shake relationships built on the expectation of your endless compliance. And it will leave you standing in a terrifying, magnificent place, face to face with your real life, the one that was waiting for you all along. I know how tempting it is to stay in the role. I know how seductive it is to believe that if you just keep being good, one day it will all feel worth it. But it won't, because love built on your silence is not real love. Respect built on your disappearance is not real respect. Freedom only comes when you decide you are done asking for a seat at a table that demands you leave your soul at the door. This choice, to reclaim yourself, to live from your truth, to extend kindness from strength and not fear, will not make life easier. But it will make life real. It will make life yours. And that, no matter the cost, is a price worth paying, because in the end, the only respect that truly endures is the respect you hold for yourself, the kind no one can give you, and no one can take away. You were not born to bend yourself into something more palatable. You were not crafted by existence to live quietly in the background of your own story. You were born with a spine meant to stand tall, with a mind meant to question, with a voice meant to be heard, not shouted, not forced, but spoken with the kind of clarity that leaves no room for doubt. Quiet strength is not weakness. Quiet strength is unshakable. It is rooted so deeply in truth that it needs no performance, no validation, no borrowed approval to feel real. It simply is. So speak. Speak not to convince, not to argue, but to reveal what is true within you. Speak with the kind of voice that does not tremble even if the room goes silent after you finish. Love not out of a frantic need to be needed, but from the overflowing well of your own completeness. Love with open hands, not desperate ones. Help when your soul says yes, not because you feel guilty, not because you fear being unloved if you don't, but because giving from fullness is the only giving that nourishes both sides. Forgive those who have wronged you, but do not erase the memory of the lesson. Forgiveness is for your peace, not their redemption. And above all, live not for the trembling applause of those who do not know your heart. Live not for the fleeting approval that evaporates as quickly as it is given. Live in alignment, deep, fierce, unbreakable alignment with the truth of who you are. Because this messy, beautiful, unscripted life is yours. It was not given to you as a stage to play a part that makes others comfortable. It was given to you as a wild, precious thing to inhabit fully, unapologetically, awake. You are not here to be convenient. You are not here to be a placeholder in someone else's story. You are here to be real, to stand as you are, where you are, anchored in something so much greater than the approval of others, anchored in your own unshakable truth. And if something inside you stirred today, if a voice that's been silent for too long started whispering again, don't ignore it. That is not weakness speaking. That is your strength waking up. Feed it, protect it, honor it, because the world doesn't need another agreeable face nodding along to things that betray their soul. It needs you, your whole, untamed, living truth. Stay with us, because this journey into reclaiming yourself is just beginning. There is more truth ahead, more strength to uncover, more of yourself to meet again. Hid like if today you choose to be whole, not convenient. Leave a comment and tell us, what part of yourself are you reclaiming first? Subscribe, and keep walking this road with us, because together, we rise, strong, clear, and fiercely alive.